Senator Jeff Flake, that was an easy choice for John Kelly.
In a speech today, Arizona Republican Senator Jeff Flake, you heard some of it, said the president's description of the press as fake news is Stalin-esque. How do you respond to all that?
I think it's unfortunate that he would do that. I think he's completely wrong. It more than suggests to me well, I just think he's completely wrong. I think it's beneath him, but he is a United States senator and he has his opinions, and he can voice them any way he wants, I guess.
Joining us now, Nina Kruscheva, professor of international affairs at the New School, and the great-granddaughter of Nikita Khrushchev, who was once leader of the Soviet Union, and Yascha Mounk, a lecturer on government at Harvard and the author of The People versus Democracy, Why Our Freedom is in Danger and How to Save It. Nina, referee this dispute between John Kelly and Jeff Flake. John Kelly says, I think he's completely wrong when Jeff Flake was talking about comparing Trump's language to Joseph Stalin.
Well, I think John Kelly is completely wrong because enemy of the people was a very well-known phrase that was used in Stalin's Russia, was used in Hitler's Germany to brand anybody who was disagreeing with the political system right from the top. So this is actually historical fact, it's truth, and therefore John Kelly is wrong. Although I do want to say that when we speak about Senator Flake comparing Trump to Joseph Stalin, I think we are wrong because he didn't compare them, he just compared the language, which I think in a democracy already is a coup, but nonetheless, it's not a direct comparison between the two men.
Expand on that point. In a democracy, it's a coup if the president is using Stalin's language?
Well, in a democracy, it is a coup because not only the president is using enemy of the people, not only summarily the press organizations today, we just saw the results of the fake news award, which is remarkable in many ways. So it is a coup that the president summarily brands those who disagree with them as the enemies and those who produce fake information. That is something that non-democracies do. And so I think in this sense, it's an absolute coup that in his language, the president sides with those very well-known dictators, and not just the 20th century dictators, but all autocrats from time immemorial.
Well, that's another point Jeff Flake went on to make. Let's listen to more of what Jeff Flake said today about talking about President Assad of Syria and Rodrigo Duterte of the Philippines. Let's listen to this.
In February, Syrian President Bashar Assad brushed off an Amnesty International report that some 13,000 people have been killed in one of his military prisons by saying, "You can forge anything these days. We're living in a fake news era." In the Philippines, President Rodrigo Duterte has complained of being demonized by fake news. Last month, the report continues, with our president, quote, laughing by his side, Duterte called reporters spies.
And Yascha Mounk, the president has been fueling this kind of thing since he started denying that the President Obama's birth certificate was the president's birth certificate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we're seeing is a full-scale attack on very basic rules and norms of liberal democracy. And the most important of those is that you have to transact politics on the basis of truth, that you can't go about as a top politician and simply make things up if it happens to be useful to you. In fact, I think what Trump is doing is one step further. It's not just that he lies when it's convenient to him, which a bunch of politicians do. It's that he wants to overwhelm the public sphere with so many bogus claims, with so much ridiculousness, that nobody can actually orient themselves. That we all have to give up on actually thinking about what's right and what's wrong, what did happen and what didn't happen, and everybody just ends up going with their own team. And when that happens, you no longer have a rational basis for deliberation, which is what representative democracy was meant to do.
You wrote in a piece today in Slate saying Trump himself has not been normalized, but the fact that the President of the United States is deeply abnormal has. Expand on that.
Yeah, so I was reflecting on where we're at 1 year into the Trump presidency. And if you remember the sort of mood after Trump was elected, in his first days in office, there's all of these warnings that we would end up normalizing Donald Trump. And what people meant by that is that we would start to think that Trump and his policy and his administration are just a perfectly ordinary part of American political life. Now, when you look at the spectacle of the last days, if you look at the comments that Trump reportedly made about African countries, if you think about the extraordinary news about Stormy Daniels, even if you think about today's fake news award, everybody knows that this is not normal, right? It's daily spectacle. Everybody realizes that we're living in just extraordinary, bizarre times. But I've seen over the last 12 months, people get more and more used to it. So though they know it's abnormal, they haven't changed how they act. That's true of Republicans in Congress who haven't really stood up to Donald Trump. It's true, actually, of the stock markets, that even though there's real downside risks from all of this chaos, from the possible government shutdown and so on, is going from one strength to another. And I think it's even true among some of the people who most despise Donald Trump, who want to stand up to him. A year ago, there was huge protests against him. Now those protests are much smaller. So I think we have normalized living in an abnormal situation, and that in some ways is just as dangerous.
Nina Kruscheva and Yascha Mounk, thank you both for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, Democrats got a